One of the interesting challenges we have in the balanced scorecard is we're often looking at mixed unit of measure indicators that need to get consolidated into an overall number. So, the need is this. We need to get some top-level performance measure that aggregates these different units of measure. So an example might be we're looking to get a measure overall for our call center, but our key metrics are talk time, which would be measured in minutes, first call resolution rates, which might be measured in percentage, and abandon rate, which might also be measured in percentage. And so we have to somehow or the other aggregate those numbers up to an overall contact center indicator. So there are several ways to do it. The common ways are 1, to convert it to dollars, like we do in accounting. 2, compare the actual to target, and then we get a number such as we're used to seeing, 98% of target. Or score the performance, sort of like an Olympic decathlon where different events earn different number of points based on your performance. So let's take a look at each one. When I convert things to dollars, the advantage is, of course, most organizations already have accounting financial systems that are well accepted, and most stakeholders know how to read that financial information. The disadvantage is, of course, that too much detail is lost in the conversion. In other words, there's not a tight relationship, for example, in the amount that you've paid for this course and the value you're going to get from it. And of course, the accounting rules also limit our ability to capture intangible assets. For example, the work of our knowledge workers isn't adequately reflected. And the elapsed time for accounting to make its allocations means that most reports are out of date before the financial data is available to us. Another option is to compare it against a target. So the advantage here is the concept's already in use. Most organizations often express our performance as a % of target. The disadvantage is that it doesn't necessarily accurately reflect a non-linear relationship between the effort required and the performance achieved. And this is especially true as performance approaches 100%. So, for example, the effort required to get an order accuracy of 99.1% up to 99.2% is huge, but much more than, say, getting the error rate from 40% or accuracy rate from 40% up to 50%, just because there's so much low-hanging fruit and easy fixes to make. And secondly, it's hard to understand KPIs which are already a % unit of measure. So, for example, let's talk about an availability of a piece of equipment. And let's say our actual availability is 99%, and our target availability for that piece of equipment is 97%. Therefore, our actual availability is 99% divided by the target, 97%, which gets us 103% availability, which is hard for people to understand. The final option is scoring. What scoring looks like is we assign points to each performance threshold. And again, the example there is like a decathlon event. So let's say, for example, for solving problem tickets, if we close it in 3 days, we earn 50 points. If we close it in 2 points, we earn 70 points. In 1 day, we earn 100 points. So in this case, the confusing example I had from before, availability, 99.1% gives you 50 points, 99.2 gives you 70 points. And so we've shown that non-linear relationship between effort and output by allowing the points to show that non-linear relationship. So the advantage here is it supports more points for more effort. And so even when smaller improvements in performance and so forth, the disadvantage is it requires some explanation. So let's take a look to alternatives in the performance reporting world. Now, we talked about comparatives in our earlier tape. That example is straightforward. Let's say I'm 75% versus target, 97% versus last year, and I'm doing 123% of best in class. I'm still going to have those red, yellow, and green zones. So for that one comparative, I'm red against target, yellow against last year, and green against best in class. So that performance rating on comparatives allows us to see how we're performing in a more complex framework. The dilemma is we then have to weight that to get an overall answer. So let's take a look at something like customer satisfaction. I might have 4 measures: positive contacts, billing performance, value added, and cycle time. And I'm going to weight those based on what our customers think are important. So value add and cycle time are the 2 important indicators. So as we begin to take a look at those, we can begin to quantify that performance. So here are the indicators and the weighting. Now, if I compare that to budget, I might say I'm 100% of budget, 90% of budget on billing performance, 95% on value added, and 100% on cycle time. So to calculate our performance, I can multiply the performance times the weighting. So 20 times 100 plus 20 times 90 plus 30 times 95 plus 30 times 100. And that gives me a 96.5% performance against target. Now, if I looked at a different comparator, say last year, maybe I'm performing better than last year in all counts, and when I do the mathematics, I end up with 104%. So this weighting allows us to weight these performances to get me the overall performance number. Now, the actual formula we use, in case you want to practice this, is if high values are good, we do 100 plus actual divided by target over top of target times 100. If, on the other hand, high values are bad, we change the plus sign to a minus sign. And that allows us to do that calculation to give the correct percentage. The final option is points. What we can do is allocate points based on the progress and priority that we make. So if we listed the priority down the left side of a points table and the progress we make across the top, I can then set up a points table. So in this case, let's say I had a critical objective that I managed to take to the success level. I earn 125 points. If I have an essential that I take all the way to success, I earn only 100 points. So in this way, I can allocate my time based on points earned and the progress I make over any particular period. And again, this allows us to do what we now call the gamification of business, because I can give myself a point score on how we're performing so that all of us can get aligned about the progress we're making and where it is we should be focusing our efforts.